I don't want to set the world on fire.
James Cameron's brilliant 1984 flick, The Terminator, is one of my all-time favorite movies. Having first seen it shortly after its release at the tender age of 6, Arnold's eponymous role, which terrified me to my very core, was unquestionably a huge influence on me and the media that I chose to absorb throughout the 80s. And it had boobs. Hell yeah! So the thought of having an awesome movie-to-video game adaptation on the NES, which, let's face it, was pretty hard to come by back then, was intriguing as hell, and even more so when I saw that my wishes were actually coming to fruition when I spied in the Pack Watch section of the July-August 1989 issue of Nintendo Power, a Terminator game being developed by Sunsoft. Now by this time, Sunsoft had already released a movie-to-game tie-in in the form of Batman, which was a bit of an anomaly for a licensed game as it was nothing short of fantastic. I had no doubt in my mind that Sunsoft would deliver in the same fashion when it came to the Terminator. However, years went by, and I never heard about the game ever again, as it had apparently vanished from the face of the earth. And when the Terminator was released for the NES later in 1992, it clearly wasn't the same game as shown in Nintendo Power, nor was it even developed by Sunsoft. It wasn't until I was an adult when I discovered that Journey to Silius, a game I had never played until just recently, is that very same Terminator game that I had so coveted back in the day. Supposedly, the Terminator license had expired during Sunsoft's development of the game and was never restored, ultimately delivering a "fuck you, asshole" to both NES and Terminator fans alike. Some of the sprites had to be altered, and an entire new plot was conceived to accompany Journey to Silius. Set far into the future, mankind has overpopulated the Earth and has since immigrated into space colonies in order to survive. The main protagonist, Jay, learns that his father, a top engineer constructing the latest colony, is killed when terrorists destroy the space station, leaving behind a floppy disk containing his life's work back on Earth, which instructs Jay to continue his father's legacy and to eradicate and exact vengeance on the murderous terrorists. The game begins on a ravaged Earth where nuclear calamity has molded the landscape into a charred, broken skeleton once inhabited by a thriving human populace. Jay, emblazoned in a standard futuristic white jumpsuit with pea shooter in hand, fights off hordes of cybernetic beings and automatons, enveloped in a desolate environment consisting of bomb deployments in the background, dilapidated buildings, and wanted posters of evil mutant penguins. We should have seen the writing on the wall during present day. Penguins are jerks. Jay's sprite is a bit... I don't know, but what the hell is this thing? I actually prefer the sprite in the Japanese version of the game Rough World, where the main protagonist sports a helmet. To me, this adheres more to the bleak tone of Silius versus what seems to represent a human head in the North American version. Thankfully, the rest of the game looks amazing, boasting of environments that could have been taken straight from the Terminator, such as an underground bunker which housed much of the Resistance. The game also has that archetypal Sunsoft aesthetic found in other games, with flashy technology and machinery, including, you guessed it, conveyor belts. Now where have we seen these before? The baddies for the most part are all machines to be disposed of, some generic looking while others slightly Giger-esque. And along Jay's journey to Silius, he collects a number of powerful firearms designed to eliminate these mechanical threats. Similar to the special weapons in Mega Man, these alternate guns pack quite a punch, in exchange for ammunition. But unlike the Blue Bomber's arsenal, the weapons in Silius all share the same ammunition meter, which translates into a lot of rationing, which is kind of a bummer. A new weapon is collected right before the end of each stage where you face off against a mini-boss, which can then be used against the big boys. But because of the shared ammunition and the sparse amount of ammo pickups, I pretty much use the special weapons for the bosses only, minus for a few parts in the game where weapons such as the homing missiles will undoubtedly save your bacon. It's a damn shame too, cause I feel that the numerous guns could have been utilized far more efficiently than they actually were. And if you want to talk about sparse pickups, look no further than the health upgrade. Learning the game, and by that I mean memorizing it, will prevent you from taking all of the unnecessary damage that is inflicted upon you while taking the gamble that you may or may not receive any health pickups. I swear I've played this game without getting any whatsoever. Silius only affords you with 3 continues and no extra lives, so you get a total of 12 to beat the game before having to start all over from the beginning again. Sounds brutal, doesn't it? And Journey to Silius does have that reputation of being a hard game, and while it is challenging, I would hardly call it difficult. Like any run and gun shooter, once you have enemy placement, patterns, and weapon utilization memorized, the game isn't too tough to beat. And that's on top of generous checkpoints to boot. Which is why Sunsoft made Jay control like a banana heel-wearing, reflex-disabled, floaty apparition to combat what would otherwise be a somewhat uneventful and, dare I say, easy trek throughout the game. Jay's movements are marred by what I can only describe as slow reflex controls. When Jay takes damage, there's a split second of stun lock, where you are immobile and can often lead to missed jumps and death. The game also has some bullshit jumps that can easily end a perfect run for you if you're not careful. Once the floor drops out from under you, you only have a split second to react, otherwise you plummet down a hole on your way to be reunited with Daddy. And even then that split second isn't always enough and you won't make the leap regardless. While I have most of the game completely mastered, I still fall victim to the A button not working all of the time. It's pretty damn frustrating. But you know what? It's all something that can easily be adapted to, and any gaming veteran shouldn't have any issues acclimating themselves to Jay's quirky controls. The stages in Journey to Silius are all fairly long, loaded with baddies and obstacles, employing some very clever level design complemented by a killer soundtrack. Come on! Did you really think we could talk about Journey to Silius without mentioning the music? Naoki Kodaka is arguably at his very best here, providing an atmospheric, brooding, and sometimes intense score that will only pump you up to take out hordes of mechanical beasts. Man, does it fire me up! This game's music makes me want to punch your mother in the face! Now, while Journey to Silius does have some fairly lengthy stages in it, there are only a total of 5, so the overall game isn't too long. While I do have to applaud the level design and enemy placement for the first 4 stages, Stage 5 seems to be a cheap cop-out, as it is an auto-scrolling stage of sheer bullshit. 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 Loaded with crates, compactors, and golden shower sprayers, the hazards throughout this stage rely on nothing but memorization and trial and error. How the hell am I supposed to know to hug the right side of the screen for the first third of the stage unless I have already died a buttload of times? How the hell am I supposed to know to jump at the edge of the screen to land on top of a crate that is still off screen? How the hell am I supposed to know to do it 2 more times before a sliver of what I even know what I'm supposed to be jumping to has materialized? Yeah, I can get through Stage 5 unscathed now, but that doesn't mean it's not an absolute heap of utter horse shit. But is it a deal breaker? Hell no. Journey to Silius is fantastic. Sunsoft delivered once again, providing a challenging run and gun worthy enough to be amongst the ranks of Contra and Mega Man, complete with amazing music and visuals. I mean, check out these boss sprites. They're friggin' huge! Now that's awesome. Despite some of my annoyances with the controls and some cheap elements sprinkled throughout, Journey to Silius is an absolute blast, and I can't believe I waited so damn long to play it. It's easily one of the best NES games that I've discovered after the age of 30. It's just too bad that Sunsoft had lost the Terminator license while the game was in development, cause let's face it, Journey to Silius would have been a huge hit had Arnie adorned that title screen, and undoubtedly would have been the perfect game to represent what is a badass and iconic movie.
You're a terminated fucker.